Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chamo Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Neye AKANFO NANASOM Da, Medinde Ojirafo, Kwesi, Min-Ptah, Akan. Akwamumai Maruka Etifi Mu Ojirafo, Ojiramai Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, many Africans, black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirafo, Kwesi, Min-Ptah, Akan. Ojirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America, within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We have our opening up the chat room. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. For those who are new to our broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, on Joda on Monday nights. On this broadcast, we deal specifically with the Akan expression of ancestral religion of NANASOM, first and foremost because we are Akan, secondly because of the misinformation being propagated regarding Akan ancestral religion, culture, ritual practice, cosmology from individuals in the Western Hemisphere and also from individuals on the continent of Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, who have been infected with Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, white culture, pseudo-fake religions, and fictional cartoon characters who never existed, inclusive of Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Shiva, Menelik, Buddha, Brahman, Mahavira, all these fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any race. Those infections have infected their presentation of the culture. Therefore, we deal with ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion that deals with our ancestral origins as Akan people from ancient Kanat, the Kan land, which is the title of ancient Nubia. It's called the Kan land, Kanat. At the fall of ancient Kemet 2,000 years ago in northern Kanat, we migrated to the western part of the continent of Afuraitkaitnit. Some of our people reestablished the Kanat Empire, the Empire of Ghana. Hundreds of years subsequent to that, because of Muslim invasion, some of our people migrated further south, reestablished ourselves in the forest belt and savanna regions in what is today's contemporary Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, and the Republic of Ghana, and we reestablished our Kana civilization once again. Centuries later, some of our people were forced from those regions into North Central South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Musuo Kessie, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. And this is how Akan people ended up in the Western Hemisphere. However, we maintained our ancestral religious traditions. Thus, Akan ancestral religion in Suriname, for example, South America, is called Winti, from the Akan term Winti. In Jamaica, Akan ancestral religion is called Obia, from the Akan term Obai. In the United States, Akan ancestral religion is called Hoodoo, from the Akan term Undu, meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life, root work. It also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication. We also call the tradition conjure, from the Akan term kanche, which means to utter incantations to bring the spirits forward. Those terms and their definitions can be found in ancient Kanat and Kemet, in the language of ancient Kanat and Kemet, in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs. Undu meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life, also meaning to become heavy with the spirit. It also means the offerings that we give to the deities. Undu is also a title of the land itself, ancient Nubia, called the Undu land, and the people, the Undu people. The term Ka, Che, also means to utter incantations to bring forth the spirit. So we have this unbroken tradition across continents and across millennia. We maintained our ancestral religious practices. We were thus empowered and guided by the Abosom, the deities, and our Nananom Nsama, for our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, to wage warfare against the whites and their offspring, Achiwadye, for the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, those who are divinely prohibited, divinely hated, rejected, spirits of disorder. We wage war against them and force the end of enslavement. We wage physical warfare by taking up metal armaments, as well as the utilization of chemicals and biological weapons of warfare, root work being the precedent established in the Western Hemisphere by our people for waging chemical and biological warfare. So that's what we deal with on AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion. We have the broadcast Ojira on Benada Tuesday nights. Abenada, Ojira means purification, so we deal with the purification of concepts, culture, cosmology, not just dealing with the Akan Ancestral Religion, but Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Ancestral Religion, wherever we exist in the world, on the continent as well as in the Western Hemisphere. We deal with how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. Ancestral religion, or Nanasom as we call it, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Ancestral Religion, in essence is defined as the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contracted poles of ancestral religion. We state that Ojira, purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our ritual practice of incorporating law and restoring balance so that we can execute our divine function in creation and live in harmony with our culture, our way of life, which is to align every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day. That is the divine acceptance, the law, the love of order, and the divine rejection, hatred, repulsion of disorder and its purveyors. That is our culture, our way of life, accepting order, rejecting disorder and its purveyors. When we make legitimate mistakes in the context of executing our function in creation on a regular basis, then we engage the ritual process to incorporate law and restore balance so that we can realign ourselves, our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day so we can continue to function harmoniously in creation. This is how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. So we deal with the purification of cosmology, culture, concepts, ritual practice because of the misinformation that is being propagated by individuals in the Western Hemisphere as well as those who have been corrupted on the continent of Afuraitkaitnit in their purported traditional expression of ancestral religion has been infected. On Akuda Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace, where we showcase Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, and institutions, those who serve the Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity, those who maintain their ancestral religious values as a foundation which informs them and informs their service to the community. We have our Okom economic development model, which is an approach to economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values. Thus, it's a holistic approach to economic development. Part of that process within the model is the starve the beast and feed the pride operation. So we make an assessment with regard to what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring in the course of a week. Then we starve the beast and feed the pride, reallocate those funds away from the white businesses and direct them to the business of the week. And we showcase one business of the week so that we can have optimal capital infusion. We starve the beast and feed the pride and reroute thousands of dollars from white businesses and direct them to a business in a particular week in a 7-day period. Then that business is able to hire from within the community immediately and permanently, expand their product lines to us, expand their services to us, and so forth. And it's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process, then we by default leave thousands and ultimately billions of dollars, the $20 billion we spend weekly. We're spending 95+% of that with the whites and their offspring and only 5% with our own people. We need to reverse that. If we do not reverse that and make that assessment on a weekly basis and work to starve the beast and feed the pride on a weekly basis, then by default we are leaving billions in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring, and by default, we are financing our own oppression. The business of the week for this week is Kemet Crowns, owned by Okotowa Merit Alsar. She came onto the broadcast last Awukuda Wednesday on the Egua Marketplace, and that our week for Egua Marketplace goes from one Awukuda, one Wednesday, to the following Awukuda, the following Wednesday, to the following Egua Marketplace show. So from last Awukuda Wednesday up until this Awukuda this Wednesday coming up, 2 days from now, the business of the week, that 7-day period, is Kemet Crowns by Okotowa, owned by Okotowa Merit Alsar. Please support that business, starve the beast, and feed the pride. And on Yada Abada Thursday night, we have Ama and Sim Affairs of the Nation, where we deal with nationism, the purification of nationalism. Amaniye is the term used for nationism, the purification of nationalism. We deal with specific issues that are confronting us as an Oman, as a nation, specifically as Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere, because we were forced into this region of the Earth Mother, in the Western region of our body. We were directed to coalesce in a specific region in the Western Hemisphere by our ancestresses and ancestors, to blend ancestral blood circles, to draw ancestresses and ancestors back through these blended ancestral blood circles. We learned to interface and were directed to interface with the Earth Mother divinities in this region of their body, learning to interface with the unique expression of the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the Ntoro to the deities as they manifest in this region of the Earth Mother's body in the Western Hemisphere, plant, animal life, and mineral life that we interface with in this region of the Earth Mother's body for food as well as medicine, and also the spiritual manifestations through plant, animal, and mineral totems and so forth we've infused. So that confluence of events have allowed us to focus and forge a locative identity rooted in those specific, unique, nuanced interactions. Thus, we have a unique expression of ancestral culture, a unique expression of ancestral religion born of our experience here in the Western region of the Earth Mother's body, and therefore our approach to our issues is unique and our own. So we have an approach to nation-building restoration, which is a pure approach rooted in the understanding of what a nation and Oman is. A nation is a living, breathing entity, like an organ. It's a living, breathing entity governed by specific forces in nature, and the cells of the organ support themselves, interface with one another, but they also support the organ of which they are a component part and the deities that govern that organ. And when we coalesce in a specific region, we're part of a living, breathing entity, an Oman, and we live in harmony with the divinities that govern that organal structure. So that's how we approach nation building, Amaniye, nationism, the purification of nationalism. Tonight's broadcast, we're going to focus on the great bull, Min-Ptah, and the Seven Het Heru, the Seven Kaitu, the 7 sacred cows and so forth, the 7 Het Heru divinities. You'll find these representations in different texts of ancient Kemet as well as stelae and so forth. And we wanted to get into some detail about that, their representation, specifically in this particular time period, because this is, in a couple of days, of course, it will be the Festival Bere, the beautiful time, the beginning of spring, the spring equinox and so forth. And we're moving from the end of the cool period, crossing that balancing point, the second balancing point of the year, moving into the warm period, the sprouting time, and so forth. So we're moving into that period. We are in the midst of our 13-day Apoo Afahye, meaning the Apoo Festival. If you move the Akomu Nation in North America, we observe that 13-day Akan observance. For us, between March 13th and 25th this year, depending on the year, it can be March 12th through the 24th or March 13th through the 25th. It is calibrated around the spring equinox, so we take advantage of this time of the year, the shift in energy, especially here in the Western Hemisphere, the shift in energy from the winter solstice, the coldest, darkest time of the year, moving to the balancing point towards the spring equinox, there's a shift in energy, there's an increase in solar fire and so forth, and we take advantage of this balancing point of the year to equilibrate ourselves, to purge anything we brought into this warm cycle, this upswing, purge any negative debris spiritually away so we can move into the next cycle clean and free and open to engage the process of development, cultural development, spiritual development, communal development, nation building, and so forth from a firm, clean, clear foundation. So this is what we do during this particular time. We engage in ritual practices. You can see on the Apoo page on our website some details about that. But we wanted to talk about this, the nature of Ka, the Ka and the Kaitu, this great sacred bull and the 7 Het Heru cows, the copulation of the bull and the 7 cows in the context of fertility, not only fertility of the land, but that fertilization process with regard to development of the oman, development of the nation, of course, that is rooted in a firm foundation with regard to relationships between the Afurakani man and Afuraitkaitnit woman, balanced relationships. That's the foundation of a balanced home, balanced family, and of course, that's the cornerstone of ancestral nation building restoration. So we want to talk about that in this context, and also in the context of we have coming up our Ka Kaitu, Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo retreat, which will take place in Treme, New Orleans on the Memorial Day weekend. And you'll see on the page, the Ka Kaitu page, and you can go to that page now. We're going to put the link in the chat room. We have the images of the 7 Het Heru divinities and the cow. It is ojirafo.com/Ka Kaitu. And we're going to pull that up right now. I just want to go over that information very quickly. One of the reasons we're utilizing, the reasons why it is called Ka and Kaitu. And you'll see the great cow with the great horns and so forth. So what we say on the page is in our ancestral language of ancient Khanid and Kemet, which is Nubian Egypt, the terms Ka and Kaitu are the male and female terms for soul. The soul, the Ka and Kaitu, is an abosom Vodou, a deity, an Ntorot, a divinity, assigned to us by the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being, to dwell with us in our head region and guide us throughout the course of our lives. Our Ka and Kaitu, Ka for males, Kaitu for females. The Ka or Kaitu is encoded with the blueprint regarding our divine functioning creation and the spiritual power we possess to execute that function. And when we talk, that's no different than the brain. If you look at it physically, the brain is an organ in your head region that regulates the functions and has the blueprint for the proper functioning of all organs and glands and systems in the body, and it regulates that order. In your spirit body, there's a force in the head region, a spiritual organ, a force, an entity dwelling in the head region that regulates order within your spirit body. That is your spirit's brain. That is the Ka, if you're male, Kaitu, if you're female. It is a male deity that you can communicate with, or a female divinity that you can communicate with, just like you can communicate with and be possessed by other forces in nature as well. So that divinity dwells with us in the head region, is assigned to us and comes to take up residence in our head region, assigned to us by the Supreme Being. So it has a blueprint, as we said, regarding our divine functioning creation and the spiritual power we possess to execute that function. We function fully as adults only when we adhere to the direction of our Ka and Kaitu. Attunement to our Ka and Kaitu is central to being rooted in manhood and womanhood as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Africans, Black people. The terms Ka and Kaitu also reference bull and cow. These are sacred animal totems associated with our ancestral clans, as well as the abosom and Vodou, the deities governing the soul, the Ka and Kaitu. So the term soul, divine consciousness, the deity in the head region is Ka, if you're male, Kaitu if you're female. Of course, in Akan, that is Kra and Okrawa. In Yoruba, it's the Ori, Inu, and Vodun is the Selido, and Chi and Igbo. But it's the Ka if you're male and Kemet, Kaitu if you're female. That's the divinity. The word for bull is also Ka, and the word for cow is Kayet. We will also, so they're named after those great divinities. You'll also find that the male term for the male organ, the sex organ, the phallus, is Ka in ancient Kemet. It is named after the soul, and the term for vagina, the female genitalia, is Kayet, because it's named after the soul as well. So you have the great Ka and Kaitu in the head region. In the supernal region, you have the small Ka and Kaitu. So the brain is the great Ka and Kaitu that's regulating everything in the body. And of course, you have the Ka and Kaitu in the lower region of the body, the phallus and the vagina and so forth. And of course, utilized to bring forth ancestresses and ancestors from the spirit realm back into the physical realm via copulation. So, of course, the Ka and Kaitu, the phallus and vagina structures, these are instruments to bring ancestresses and ancestors back into the world. So, therefore, just like every other part of the body, they are shrines for specific divinities. The heart is a shrine for divinities, the lungs, the brain, the pineal gland, pituitary gland, the various organs and systems of the body are shrines for different divinities. Just like the great organs and systems within the great divine body of the Supreme Being are shrines for these major divinities, they have shrines within our bodies, physical shrines, and it's through those physical shrines that their energy resonates. It is no different with the reproductive system, and it's key that the reproductive system, the organs of the reproductive system are called Ka and Kaitu, because they bring forward those spirits, just like your brain brings forth that wisdom from the ancestresses and ancestors and the communication from the forces in nature, the deities, through the phallus and vagina, the Ka and Kaitu in the lower realms, you bring forth living beings back into the world. So, but it's also a term for bull and for cow. And we talk about ancestral clans. So, where do they get this notion of the 7 Het Heru divinities, and then you have the bull, the Ka? If you look in the Renewal Heru, you will see, and we're going to focus tonight on the 7 cows and the bull that's associated, but in chapter 148 of the Renewal Heru, and we have this in our book, Kemet Hinatan Toro. We'll put that link in the chat room right quick. Hold on one second. Okay, in our book, Kemet Hinatan Toro, The Black Nation and Divinity, and we will give you the page number. We also want to put the link to the Kaitu page on the website, because they're all directly related. But when you go to you can download the free ebook version of the book. You look on page 31. We have the image from chapter 148 of the Renewal Heru, so-called Book of the Dead, but the Book of Coming Forth by Day and so forth. The 7 cows, the 7 Het Heru divinities in the form of 7 cows, then the bull that are connected to the 7 cows. Next to that are the 4 rudders of the sky. Then next to that in the next panel are 12 bearded divinities. Now, in that particular section, and then up under that, just to show another variation or rendition of the 7 Het Heru divinities, this time in the form of 7 females. We show that, and then we also show the 12 male divinities standing on the great serpent called Ka and Kaitu, and they're pulling the boat of Ra. So that's another rendition of those 12 bearded divinities that you see in chapter 148. But the key here is a couple of things. The whites and their offspring try to pretend like they came up with quote-unquote astrology, and they came up with constellations and so forth, and some of them will even say that in ancient Kemet there was no astrology until the Greeks came, because in reality the people of ancient Kemet didn't have constellations all they focused on were specific stars, and certain stars were very bright. They had names for those specific stars, and that was it. They didn't have any constellations, so they had nothing to do with astrology or astronomy. And we're talking about astrology in the true sense, in the original sense, not how it's been corrupted by the whites and their offspring. So, of course, that is nonsensical, and this is a direct representation. Most people don't know that when they're looking at this particular panel, what they're actually looking at is a representation on the stellar realm of the Pleiades star system, the constellation. Then you have the bull, so-called Taurus. Then you have the constellation of so-called Orion, which is actually called Sa in ancient Kemet. And Osar is connected to Sa, the Orion constellation. He's called Osar Sa, sometimes Sahu. Now, when you look at those 7 cows, those are the 7 Pleiades. The whites and offspring will call them the 7 sisters and so forth in different traditions. But yes, they're the 7 sisters in the real sense, but these are the sometimes 7 cows, sometimes the 7 females. Under that, you have the bull. If you were to place, and you can Google an image of the Pleiades and the quote-unquote Taurus, the bull, and then the constellation of Orion, and place it right next to this image, and you will see it's the same image of the sky. We are able to show that because this is part of our culture. The whites and their offspring don't have that understanding, but we have a greater understanding because they're directly related to us by blood, our blood circles. So the 7 Het Heru, the 7 female divinities, these 7 great mother divinities, in the Akan tradition, these same 7 great mother divinities govern the 7 great ancestresses. And in Akan, this constellation, the whites and offspring call them the Pleiades, or they call them the 7 sisters. In ancient Kemet, they're called the 7 Het Heru. In Akan culture, they're called Abrewa Nane Mba, which is the older woman and her children. That set those 7 stars. So, but they are the abodes of the 7 female divinities, and they govern the heads of the 7 great ancestresses in Akan culture, who are the heads of the 7 great matriclans, or Musia. Singular Abusia, plural Musia, which means clan, ancestral clan or family. And the great clan is Abusia Kuo, or Musia Kuo, plural, the great ancestral clans. There are 7 great ancestral clans, headed by 7 women. And those 7 women, they are governed by the 7 Het Heru divinities, and they carry their energy complexes. So each one of the 7 clans has their own name: the Asona and Agona and Adriana and Ekowana and Grietuo and Asachiri and the final one, Asachiri, and the other one will come to me, but Adriana, Agona, Ekowana, or Asiniye is the 7th one. And then you have different subdivisions of these different groups. Each one has their own name. They have their own energetic character and so forth. They have sacred animal totems. So, for example, the Asona Abusia, the Asona clan, a major sacred animal totem is the Kwakwa Dabi, or the white-crested raven, also the crow, the black crow with the white, breast crest around its neck and so forth, near its chest. So that raven, but also the black crow, especially here in North America, the raven as well as the crow. That's the Asona Abusia. You have the Agona Abusia, the parrot, the Ago. The parrot is the sacred animal totem, major animal totem, and so forth. The Adriana clan. You have the Okramine. The dog is the major animal totem. The Ekowana clan, the Eko, or the great cow, that great water buffalo, and so forth. That is the sacred animal totem. Asachiri, the Opete, or the vulture, is the sacred animal totem. Asiniye, the Apan, or the bat, is the sacred animal totem. and you have Briator, which is Osebo, which is the leopard, is a sacred animal totem. So they have their own names, they have their own energy character, they have their own animal totems and so forth. Achinebo are animal totems. Every person, there are over 11 million Akan people in Ghana, 9 million Akan people in Ivory Coast, millions of Akan people in North, Central, South America, Caribbean, and Europe, descended from those who were forced into enslavement. We're naturally inclined to these different clans because we are born of these clans. We incarnate from these clans. We've lived as part of these clans in previous existences. We've reincarnated through Bebra, reincarnation through these clans. All Akan people are descendant and part of one of these 7 master clans and connected to one of these 7 great mothers. If you're not descendant physically or spiritually from one of these 7 great mothers, then you're not Akan. These 7 great mothers, these 7 great ancestresses, are governed by the 7 Het Heru divinities, or 7 great mother divinities. So we're looking at the 7 cows, or in the form of the 7 female forms of Het Heru, these Het Heru divinities and so forth. This is directly related to our blood circles. We're directly descendant of them. And it's not just Akan people, you find that across the continent in different forms. So you see those 7, then you see the bull, so the 7 Pleiades, which is 7 Het Heru, or Abrewa Nani Mba. Then you see the great bull, which is a form of the divinity Min, also called Min-Ptah in this context, but this divinity Min, Amin or Min, and then, which the white snare offspring calls Taurus, the bull. Then you see the 4 rudders of the sky, and then you see the 12, in ancient Kemet, the 12 assistants or attendants of Sa, attendants of quote-unquote Orion. This is why we show on the next page, on page 32, those 12 stars of Orion, attendants to Sa, the great deity Sa, that is the abode of Alsar in the stellar realm and so forth, just like Sapatit or Sirius or so-called Sophis is the abode of Osset in the stellar realm. The husband star constellation is Orion or Sa, and Alsar is operating through Sa. So, and he has 12 attendants, and these 12 divinities you see here. Now, in Akan culture, you will find, and we show this in the book, we talk about the 7, and just above that, we mentioned that there are 12 Ntoro, or Edjaosom, Patriclan divinities, just like we have 7 Matriclan groups that we're descendant of. There are also 12 Patriclan divinities. So on the Patriclan side, we are connected to one of those 12 divinities that protects our Patriclan energy and so forth, and has protected our Patriclan ancestresses and ancestors for thousands of years. On the Matriclan side, we're connected to one of those 7 Matriclans. The ovum is a physical entity, but the energetic complex, the divinity that animates the ovum, that energy that animates the ovum, is one of those 7 female divinities. You have the sperm cell, that's a living entity that swims around, has its own genetic material and so forth, but the spiritual force that animates the sperm cell is connected to one of those 12 Patriclan divinities. When the sperm and ovum unite and fuse together, there's a fusion of those 2 physical entities into one zygote, but you also have the Matriclan energy that animates the ovum, the Patriclan divinity that animates the sperm. They come together as well. So we draw from, just like we draw from the genetic material of our mother, the mitochondrial DNA and the Y chromosomal genetic material of the father, we also draw from the energy complex of the Matriclan divinity that informs us and influences us from the mother's side, as well as the Ejabosom, a Patriclan divinity, from the father's side. So you see that in this text that's laid out in chapter 148 in Ancient Kemet, and you'll find it in the pyramid text as well. That exact representation is manifest in our common culture on a daily basis, of course. We live this culture and we are connected to these actual deities. The difference is the whites and their offspring will call, instead of saying the 4 rudders of the sky, the whites and their offspring call that the shield of Orion, and then the other stars they'll say are Orion's body and his belt and his other arm and so forth, and they say Orion is a hunter. We don't have Sa as a hunter with a shield. These are the 4 rudders of the sky, and then you have the 12 attendants of Sa, which also operates through that Sa constellation. Sometimes those 4 rudders of the sky are manifest as the 4 sons of Heru, which are Kep, Sinwef, and Dwamutef, and Hop, and Amesti, and so forth. So whether it's the 4 rudders of the sky manifest as rudders, or the 4 sons of Heru manifest in their forms and so forth, you will find them there. And it's the same piece when you see Al-Sar sitting on his throne, and right out of a lily plant, a seshen or a lotus, you'll see the 4 sons of Heru rising up out of that plant, sitting before Al-Sar, just like these of the sky. Sometimes the 4 sons of Heru there. So that's that representation. But the key here is we want to talk about the 7 Het Heru and the bull. We just want to show the connection between the 7 matriclan divinities and the 12 patriclan divinities, and how they are manifest as a living culture. Of course, even when we're here in the Western Hemisphere, we may not speak the language fluently, but we know what clans we're from because, number one, those matriclan divinities possess our people. They show up, they manifest, they send their specific animal totems to us on a regular basis to communicate messages from the ancestresses and ancestors. So we find out directly what clans we are born of, incarnate of, directly from the ancestresses and ancestors of our clans. So this is a living culture for us. The whites and offspring have no knowledge of that. All they can do is look at some text, look at some images, and assume that they're just symbolic. Now, we want to get to, there's a link here. We're going to put this link in the chat room as well. There's a link to a hymn to the 7 Het Heru divinities from the Temple of Dendera in ancient Kemet. We put a link there. We're just going to read through that real quick just to give you a sense of who these 7 female divinities are and what their attributes are. Of course, we know who Het Heru is, and we can go over some of the information, but to give you some basic information. So we say the text says it's from the Temple of Dendera in southern Kemet, a hymn to the 7 Het Heru from this temple. So it says, we played the tambourine for your Ka, which means the soul. We danced for your majesty. We exalt you to the height of heaven. You are the mistress of Sekhem, the Minat, and the sistrum. Of course, the sistrum is that sacred instrument of Het Heru, that shaker instrument, which we showed as the vocal cords and the larynx and so forth. But you are the mistress of the Sekhem, the Minat, and the sistrum, the mistress of music, for whose Ka or soul one plays. We praise your majesty every day, from dusk until the earth grows light. We rejoice in your countenance, O mistress of Dendera. In Dendera, we praise you with song. You are the lady of jubilation, the mistress of the Iba dance, the lady of music, the mistress of harp playing, the lady of dancing, the mistress of tying on garlands, the lady of myrrh, and the mistress of leaping or ecstatic trance and dance. We glorify your majesty. We give praise before your face. We exalt your power over the deities and the gods and goddesses, the Ntoru. You are the lady of hymns of songs. You are mistress of the library like the great Seshat, at the head of the mansion of records. We propitiate your majesty every day. Your heart rejoices at hearing our songs. We rejoice when we see you day by day. Our hearts are jubilant when we see your majesty. You are the lady of garlands, the mistress of dance, the lady of unending ecstasy and so forth. We rejoice before your face. We play for your Ka. Your heart rejoices over our performance. And one of the translations, when they say the lady of unending ecstasy or fullness or fulfillment, they also will say drunkenness, but it's not talking about drunkenness where people simply are getting drunk. It's talking about drunkenness meaning becoming full or inebriated when someone gets possessed, spirit possession. that fullness takes place. The body or the spirit is quote-unquote filled up or fully inebriated, so to speak. When someone is possessed by a spirit, they can kind of look drunk or staggering a little bit at first to get a handle on that energy. Then the spirit starts moving through their body. So when they talk about the mistress or lady of unending drunkenness, this is talking about ecstatic trance and so forth. So now there are a number of different details in this particular piece. Het Heru, first and foremost, and of course the Seven Het Heru carrying this kind of energy. Het Heru is the one who is her energy is the central attraction that is the precursor to procreative activity, sexual activity, and the replenishment of its harmony, which is pleasure. So what draws the Afurakani man and Afurakani woman together to fuse together complementary opposites in an ordered divine fusion. When those complementary opposites fuse together, we're drawn together, then copulation takes place, and then there's a fusion through copulation. Complementary opposites, Afurakani man, Afurakani woman only. Of course, no dissexuality, no miscegenation or race mixing that is perverse. Only the Afurakani man, Afurakani woman of the proper age drawn together. We're drawn together by Het Heru, that energetic force. We're drawn together initially, then we're drawn together through marriage, then we're drawn together through copulation. So she governs all of these different things. Then the sperm and ovum are drawn together and fused together in a harmonious fashion. That ordered fusion sets off the cell mitosis and division and development and gestation and so forth. So all of these different manifestations of magnetism, ordered fusion, and conception in different layers. This is what Het Heru governs. And when she replenishes that harmony that she draws and brings into being, the replenishment of harmony, divine harmony, is what we call quote unquote pleasure. Not just quote unquote feeling good, but when you talk about the deity who's the deity of beauty, who manifests as Nefer or beauty. Beauty is a deity, Nefer, and that is Het Heru. Beauty is simply an expression of divine harmony. Divine harmony is a manifestation of order. When things are placed in divine order and operating in divine order, that operation, if you are to quantify it, then it is and it manifests so that you can see it and perceive it and understand it and recognize it. Harmony is simply a manifestation of divine order. When things are operating harmoniously, that's a manifestation of order. When they're disharmonious, then that's a perversion of order. That is disorder. Beauty is just an expression of that harmony, that ordered fusion. So Het Heru, she orders that fusion. Complementary opposites fuses them together, and that manifests harmony. And that beauty is an expression of harmony. Whenever you see beauty in the true sense, you're seeing an expression of divine harmony. So this is what she governs. That includes not only copulation with regard to the Afurakani male, Afurakani female, but also the fertility of the land. The fertility of the land is the foundation of a strong, independent nation, because the fertility of the land, of course, leads to food as well as medicine, as well as textiles and everything we need to draw from the land to feed ourselves, cure ourselves, shelter ourselves, protect ourselves, defend ourselves. That includes mining stones and for ritual purposes as well as for engineering purposes and so forth. So that fertilization of the land, that copulation, when you see the great bull, Ka, and then the term for phallus is also Ka. We see the great cow, Kayat, but the term for vagina is also Kayat. Then when the bull is connecting with the cow, the great phallus is connecting to the great vagina, or the great Ka and Kaitu are drawn together in the form of the sexual organs. The great bull and the cow are drawn together harmoniously. The great soul, Ka, and the great soul, Kaitu, are drawn together in a complementary fused, fashion and so forth. A bull connecting with a cow is no different than someone, to a certain extent, taking a agricultural instrument and beginning to quote-unquote plow the field, the fertile land. And when they plow the field or penetrate or plow the field, the fertile land, and then the seed is placed in the area that has been plowed. That's no different than the Afurakani male and Afuraitkaitnit female being fused together, a quote-unquote plowing of the land or the fertile land. There's a union between the Afurakani male, Afuraitkaitnit female. The seed is planted and so forth, and once the seed is planted, then the female can take that planted seed and turn it into that fully developed, fully gestated entity that will be birthed, 40 weeks later, birthed into the world. So this is what is happening with regard to the Seven Het Heru and the great Ka, the great bull. These are the seven, quote-unquote, sisters. They're really seven deities governing the seven great matriclans. And then that great bull we're going to get into right now, Amen Min. In ancient Kemet, he's called Heru Kapet, the great Heru, the great leader, chief, who is the Ka, the bull of the sky, the great Ka of the sky, the bull of heaven and so forth, Kapet. In its planetary form, the planetary home of this divinity, as Amen Min is the planet Saturn, which is also called Amen Min. It is also called Amini in ancient Kemet. It is called Amini in Akan. He's Heru Kapet and the husband of Min-Minit, which is a title of Het Heru. And in fact, we're gonna pull something else up real quick. If you look in the Oban Afuraitkaitnit Womanhood book, we talk about the title of Het Heru, where she's operating as the female form of the planet Saturn, or Min-Minit. She's called Min-Minit, and she's called Aminiwa in Akan, a Saturday-born female, Aminiwa, sometimes truncated to Ama, or Amewa, or Ami, but Aminiwa, Min-Minit in ancient Kemet. The female form operates the planet Saturn. The male form is Amen Min, or Min, the divinity Min, and so forth. You'll see that we show that term Min-Minit also means cattle. So it's a direct relationship between Min-Minit, cattle, Min-Minit, a title of Het Heru, Min-Minit, the divinity, Min operating as the great Ka, or the great bull of heaven. And when they're talking about the bull of heaven, he's the great bull of heaven, and he's impregnating the great cow in heaven. And Het Heru is shown as the great cow in heaven with great horns and so forth. But when we're talking about this great bull, in our AKANFO series, we give some information on this divinity, Min, also called Amen Min. He's referred to the Ancient One, defender of the past. He's an bosom of creation, Amen Min, as an elder, as a repository of ancestral tradition and protocol. Amen Min governs the divine axis, central nervous system, a regulatory structure within a body of creation, within the divine body of Inyamewa, Inyame, the supreme being, and thus the axis, the central nervous system, brain and spinal column within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit body, regulating order throughout the body, the brain and spinal column, the central nervous system, that is the elder system. Amen Min is called the great elder repository of wisdom and so forth. The brain and spinal column form from the neural tube first, that's the elder structure and so forth, when the baby is just gestating and developing. He's depicted in mummy form very often. He is enshrouded. The mummification process is one of preservation, and this also happens when a sacred bull would die. The bull will be mummified and so forth, seen as a shrine, a living shrine for the divinity. When the bull makes the transition, that bull is mummified and so forth. So, mummification is a process of preservation. Amen Min is the mummified one, the elder who's mummified. He preserves intact our cultural order, our amamre, our culture and traditions, amaniye. He enshrines or crystallizes our traditions. That mummification process, preserving the body, thousands of years later, they dig up the bodies of our people and they're still intact. That's a preservation process, a crystallization of the body. And as we've talked about many times before, the mummification process leads to the crystallization of the physical body, and therefore the physical body becomes a crystal, literally the greatest center of resonance. That's the greatest magnet for the spirit of the person who used to inhabit the body. It is the greatest ancestral shrine, the most potent ancestral shrine for that spirit. We would bury that physical body after mummification in a cemetery connected to the ancestresses and ancestors that have gone before us. So we go to those shrine areas, the cemetery, and pour libation, and those physical bodies are great magnets for the ancestresses and ancestors we are evoking. So he enshrines or crystallizes not only the physical body, but culturally, he's the one who enshrines or crystallizes our traditions. So he's shown with an erect phallus, perpetually impregnating creation, perpetually impregnating the great cow, the great bull. Ka is perpetually impregnating the great cow, Ka'et. That's why his planet is called Heru Kapet, meaning the great bull of heaven, the one who copulates and inseminates heaven, meaning the great Ka'et, heaven, the great mother divinity, Het Heru. So we talk about that. We talk about Ka meaning soul and heaven, Ka meaning soul and bull and so forth. We go into a little bit more information. Then we show the relationship between Amen governing the central nervous system, the crown Kara Karu, or so-called misnomer chakra in Sanskrit. It comes from the ancient Kemetic term Kara Kara, which means a shrine, but it also means anything circular or round or cylinder and so forth. But that brain is called Amen and Akan, the same name of the deity, Amen. The central nervous system we show his crown is a manifestation of the central nervous system. And we also show their relationship to Orisha Oko in the Yoruba tradition. Orisha Oko means the Orisha of the great phallus. And then Oshun Ibudi Oko, the wife of Oko, that's Het Heru, the wife of Amen. So what we're talking about here is one who's constantly inseminating the great mother, constantly fertilizing the great mother and so forth, and she's constantly receiving the seed. You see that constellation of the seven Het Heru simply representing the 7 different clans that we are descendant of. We're not all descendant of one clan mother. There are 7 different clan mothers. We're descendant of different ones, and we have different energy complexes that manifest that. Now, we also did a piece on Amen Men. We don't have to go through the whole piece, but we did do a piece dealing with this nature of fertility and so forth. And he's shown with black skin operating through the planet Afi. He's called Fi, also called Min-Ptah, and so forth. And he showed with black skin, he's the fertile one, constantly inseminating or fertilizing and so forth. That's connected to the black earth and so forth. He's connected to Friday or Fida, named after him, Fi. He's the divinity, and Fida is Friday and so forth. And this is where they get this notion of Black Friday being the time of, inseminating the entire, population with resources, fertility, abundance, and they go out on Black Friday and spend all the money and inseminate the economy with, resources to flood the economy and so forth. This is where they're getting that whole thing from the actual black god that he's shown with jet black skin. The black god of Friday, of Fida, is the god Fi, a title of Amen Men. So we did a piece on that. You'll find that in the on our Ojirasem blog on WordPress. But the key here is when you go back to the Ka and Kaitu page, we show the symbols of the 7 Het Heru. It's directly related to Afurakani manhood, Afurakani womanhood, these 7 cow divinities, fertile mother divinities. We want to read a section from the chapter of the Runu Pertinent Heru when they're talking about these 7 great mothers. One of the reasons we have that imagery for the Ka, Kaitu, Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo event retreat that we're going to have is because, number one, of the energy complex. We're talking about the soul, Ka and Kaitu, and we're talking about the soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo and so forth, and the differences between them and the similarities. I will be presenting on Oberima Afurakani Manhood during that workshop. Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau will be presenting on the Obatine Afurakani Womanhood workshop and so forth, and we will also have a joint presentations. But Het Heru is called Erzuli in the Vodun tradition. Kalinda Laveau is connected to that divinity. And of course, you have Min-Ptah, and Ptah is one of the divinities that I am connected to. My name is Ojirafo Kwesi Min-Ptah Akan, that Min-Ptah, bull, and so forth, is the Ka in this instance. Aries who lead the 7 cow divinities is Het Heru in this instance. So both of us carrying these energy complexes, we're bringing that energy to the retreat. So we can go through the Oberima Afurakani manhood piece from firm foundation, rooted in this energy, and Obaatan Afurakani womanhood piece, rooted in that firm foundation, rooted in that energy complex. Before we read from the text, if you look at the 7 Het Heru, if you look at the colorful images, you'll notice a few things. A couple of the cows are brown, one is darker brown. You have one of them that's black, but it has white portions and then black spots and so forth. Then you have another one that's primarily brown with brown spots, but then some white as well. Then you have another cow that's white. So you have these different representations: brown, black, primarily black, then dark brown, then lighter brown, reddish brown, and so forth, then black and white, brown and white, as well as white. Now, these are 7 Het Heru divinities. Het Heru is the deity Nefer. She's the deity beauty. Beauty is an expression of divine harmony. Harmony is divine order manifest. These 7 different clan mothers govern the 7 deities govern the 7 clan mothers that give birth to the various Afuraitkaitnit people. Afuraitkaitnit people, and of course that includes all sisters are descended from one of these 7 great Het Heru divinities. So these 7 different representations are different representations of Afuraitkaitnit women. So we have not other races, not at all, only Afuraitkaitnit women. We have some women who are chocolate brown, dark brown, some are lighter brown, some are black, some are brown with white, spots, quote, so to speak, that can happen. Some are born as albino. This has nothing to do with the whites and their offspring. When some of our people are born albino, that's something that can happen, and it's a genetic, condition and so forth. But the Ophidi or the albino in the Akan tradition and various other traditions on the continent who have maintained that tradition, they are protected by the ancestresses and ancestors. They receive special protection and so forth because of that condition. And if someone seeks to attack them or harm them or ridicule them to any extent, then they are, attacked by these royal ancestresses and ancestors. Just like if you had a baby with a birth, condition, if someone tried to ridicule or attack the child, then everybody in the family community would attack the person for trying to attack this child because of their condition, because they get extra attention, extra protection, and to a certain extent are endowed with other expansive capacities to make up for the lack in a certain area. It's like when someone is blind and so forth, there's an increase in their capacity for hearing to a certain extent. Things are enhanced. So within our population, certain things have taken place. So naturally you see the quote-unquote blacks and the reds in ancient Kemet, as well as ancient Khanit. In Nubia, you not only see the black and red wear for the pottery and so forth, that motif of black and red going back and forth. You see the black land and the red land, Kemet in their shirt, the black land and the red land. When we talk about red, that means red, but also reddish brown and so forth, and brown, different colors within that constellation of imagery. But then you also see within the phenotype, we have people dark brown with black undertones, dark brown with red undertones. That has to do with the energy complex. So you see the blacks and reds, and you see that manifest in ancient Khanit and Kemet. You see that in the Akan culture, like the Oyoko Kokal, the red Oyoko people of the Oyoko clan, and Oyoko Tuntum, the black Oyoko, and so forth. It's talking about dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones. It has to do with energy, the energy complex, which manifests. The fiery energy is more reddish, the little bit cooler energy is darker, and so forth. So we have that. But then the expressions that derive from that, certain things have taken place within our families through birth and so forth, where you may manifest periodically an albino. That happens within the human population of Afuraitkaitnit people, that happens amongst insects, that will happen amongst animals and so forth. That takes place. Then we have a condition where some people manifest, whether they're darker brown or lighter brown, but then they manifest not full albinism, but they will manifest certain spots on the body, which is vitiligo. They're still Afuraitkaitnit people. They still have a Ka, a soul, a divine consciousness, a Kayet. And that's the difference between us and the whites in their offspring, white Asians, white Europeans, white Arabs, white Hindus, white Americans, white Hispanics, and so forth. None of them have a Ka or a Kayet, a soul, a divine consciousness, a deity dwelling in the head region. We do. That's the difference between Afuraitkaitnit people, wherever we exist in the world, and all other groups. So even if there's an external condition, as long as you have a Ka or Kayet, you're still an Afuraitkaitnit person. And here, with the 7 different Het Heru divinities, you're seeing the original black and red, but then what derives from that, because of conditions, you have some that fully white, which is an albino condition, or some vitiligo manifestation and so forth that can take place. But these are still 7 Het Heru divinities. These are still 7 deities who are manifest divine nefer, or divine beauty. So the natural differences between Afuraitkaitnit women, we're not talking about through miscegenation, but the natural differences in color between Afuraitkaitnit women. Some are light brown, some are dark brown, some are reddish brown, some are lighter with regard to a condition like vitiligo and so forth, or albinism. They still manifest the beauty of Afuraitkaitnit women through the agency of the female divinities, Het Heru, that govern these different clans. So in essence, there's no such thing as an ugly Afuraitkaitnit woman unless their character begins to make them manifest that kind of disorder. Disorder is the only ugliness. The only people who can harmonize with divine order are people who have organs within their body, a spiritual organ that places them and roots them in divine order, which is the Ka and Kaitu. So therefore, the only people who can manifest order and therefore manifest beauty in creation are Afuraitkaitnit people. Disorder is ugliness. The whites and offspring are incapable of manifesting beauty. The only way we could say one of the whites and offspring is beautiful is if we've been brainwashed. Because in our natural mindset, context, it's impossible to point to a spirit of disorder who incarnates as a spirit of disorder and called disorder beauty. Beauty is harmony manifest. It's an expression of harmony. Harmony is a manifestation of divine order. So we're going to look at the text talking about the 7 cows. I'm going to pull that up real quick. That's chapter number 148. Hold on one second. Let me just pull that up in a different text. If you have any questions or comments, you can hit the number 1 on the phone line or post in the chat room. Okay, so in this particular text, there's a manifestation of Ra right before the 7 Het Heru divinities and the great bull. And it says, "Hail to you, you who shine in your disk, a living spirit who goes up from the horizon. I know you and I know your name." Talking to Ra standing here, Ra's mummified with his solar disk on his head. "I know the names of the 7 cows and their bull who give bread and beer, who are beneficial to souls or beneficial to spirits, and who provide daily portions. May you give bread and beer and make provision for me so that I may serve you, and may I come into being under your hinder parts, meaning may I be born from you. Now, then they give the name of the seven Het Heru, mansion of Ka, mistress of all, silent one who dwells in our place, she of chemist whom the deity ennobled, the much beloved red of hair, she who protects in life, the party colored, she whose name has power in her craft, storm in the sky which wafts the God Allah, the bull, the husband of the seven cows. May you grant bread and beer, offerings and provisions, which shall provide for my spirit, for I am a worthy spirit who is in the God's domain. Now that's the basic translation, and then we're going to pull out the actual transliteration because there are some specific terms we want to just point out very quickly. And sometimes in the other translations you don't get the specific terms. So in the actual transliteration, and you can find this in different versions of the Pert and Heru, so-called Book of Coming Forth by Day, it says, homage to you, Aneshara, who are the master of Ma'at, right and truth, the one, the master of eternity, the maker of everlastingness. I have come to you, Neb Ra, or the master Ra. I have made food offerings to the master of the Kaitu, the cows, seven cows, together with the Ka, the bull, belonging to them. O you who give cakes and ale, and they're talking about beer or ale, but it was a different kind of drink that was given as, it's not the same as the kind of beer that exists in the Western Hemisphere. They're talking about sacred cakes or bread and quote-unquote heket or henket, which they call ale or beer, to the akutu, the shining ones, the ancestresses and ancestors who are illuminate, spiritually cultivated. Grant to you my Ba to be with you. May he come into being upon your thighs, meaning may he be born from you. When you see Het Heru in the form of the great cow in the sky, you see she gives birth to the Aten-Atenit, the sun, in the east. So when they talk about being born from her hinder parts or being born upon her thighs, quote unquote, if you see a cow giving birth to a calf, you'll see exactly what they're talking about. You'll see it appears that the calf is coming out of the behind of the cow when the cow is standing up, but talking about being born from her hinder parts and so forth, or her kipat, that's what they're talking about. May he be like you, like one of you, forever and forever. May he be akut, or illuminated, in the western, the beautiful west. Then they say Asar Ani, triumphant. They're talking about this was the person who the text was written for. So the key is they're talking about making him to be like one of the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, one of the illuminated ones. Grant to my Ba that I may be with you. The Ba is the divine living energy surging through your spirit body. Just like you have energy moving through your physical body, this life force energy, the divine living energy, that fiery energy moving through your spirit body, that is your Ba, male, Ba'et, female. That's your energetic link to the energy of the various forces in creation and other created entities. Then, of course, your Ka is the soul, the brain sitting within this spirit head. Your Ba, your divine living energy, is like the life force energy or oxygen moving through the bloodstream, circulating throughout your entire body and oxygenating your various cells and giving you vitality and so forth. That's like the divine living energy surging through your spirit body. And then the Ka is like the spirit's brain. So you have the brain and the oxygenated blood. You have the Ka, which is the entity in the head, and the divine living fire, animate fire that's surging through the spirit body. So when they talk about O ye, or you who give Tau and Hekent, or sacred bread or offerings, and liquid Hekent, so-called beer, but that drink, to the ancestresses and ancestors as a ritual offering those, you who give that to them, grant you to my Ba to be with you. Just like they provided the ancestresses and ancestors with the energy to be illuminate and powerful and resilient, so they can assist us on our, development here on earth. Once you make a transition, if you live in harmony with divine order, you become one of the illuminate Akutu, the shining ones, quote unquote, literally, because you have a vibrant, powerful aura, because you lived in harmony with order. People who have a weak, murky, dim aura are people who are living out of harmony with order. So if they see you clairvoyantly, physically, your aura is weak and thin and close to your body and dim and murky and so forth. If you are strong and powerful and vibrant and living in harmony with order, you're beaming, literally. Your aura is strong and bright and vibrant. So if someone saw you clairvoyantly, they would see a strong, vibrant auric egg. When you make your transition, you still have this strong, vibrant auric egg, Kahibit. So you're infused with that energy from Ra and Ra'at and the divinities to make that vibrant auric egg permanent like that. You're radiating the same kind of energy and illuminating the path, literally, for people just like stars in the sky, illuminating the dark so we can find our way. You're an illuminate ancestor and ancestors beaming that kind of illuminate energy, and you draw your relatives who are still living on Earth into your orbit. It's like a planet or the sun draws the planets into its orbit. That luminous entity or luminous entity draws the planets into its orbit. When you're a strong, substantive individual with a strong, vibrant aura, you're an illuminate, quote-unquote, being. You have the capacity and power. Your descendants, your relatives, who are trying to learn something and get in harmony with order, you can draw them into your orbit so you can give them the wisdom of accumulated experience. So you are literally a shining being, so to speak. You're not a star, literally. We're not coming from the stars. This is not extraterrestrialism nonsense. When they talk about the Aku or Akutu are illuminate, that means they're, quote-unquote, illumined in their minds. They can see through the darkness. They're not succumbing to blindness, but they can see their way through darkness and make the proper decisions. So they're intelligent and wise, but they're also literally illuminate, literally, quote-unquote, shining, and literally have the capacity to draw us in their orbit. And they are assigned to us to do that. So when the deities give, the offerings of energy to the Aku, the Akutu, to make that luminous nature permanent, the person, the deceased, is saying, can you do the same for me? I lived in harmony. He went through the, trial of balancing the heart against the feather already. That happened earlier in the text. He was adjudicated to be living in harmony with order. He went through the test. That was the test or trial with the Ntoro, goddess Ma'at. Then he went through the test with the Ntoro, the god Ma'a, after that, and he passed that test. We talked about that in the previous broadcast, going through those judgment interrogations and so forth with Ma'at and the god Ma'a. He already went through that in the earliest text, and he was adjudicated to be Ma'a Keru, a truer voice living in harmony with divine order. So now that he went through that, here at the end of the text, he's saying, just like you did this for the other spirits who came before me, and now they are illuminate spirits, they are Aku Akutu, they are powerful, they are vibrant, and they are, manifest that strong energy, and they can radiate that energy from the deities. They've been infused with the energy and increased endowment of energy from the deities of dispensation, and they can transmit that to us. Do the same thing for me. Allow my divine living energy to be with yours, so it can be empowered. So I can be a luminous, shining being just like them, because I passed the test. I did what I need to do. I lived my life properly. So do the same thing for me that you did for them. And he's asking the divinities to do that. Then it says, may he come into being upon your thighs. May he be like one of you forever and forever. May he be glorious, or Aku, illuminate, from the beautiful west, the land of the ancestresses and ancestors. Asking these divinities to birth him into the ancestral realm, just like they birthed him into the physical realm. You'll see these 7 divinities in for example, the tale of the quote-unquote doomed prince in ancient Kemet, or the tale of the 2 brothers in ancient Kemet, these earlier texts. The 7 Het Heru divinities in the form of 7 women show up at the birth of the individual, and they'll say, well, they announce the person's fate. So the whites and offspring will say, well, these are 7 fairies and they show up when someone is born, and they announce the fate of the individual. That's all they can fathom or glean from those stories. Of course, we know much more than that because we are directly descendant of these divinities, have their energy within us. We're descended from one of these seven and the great ancestresses who had these seven clans who manifest that energy of the Seven Het Heru and so forth. We're directly tied to them. So when they talk about the Seven Het Heru showing up at birth, they're talking about these seven matric clans, and the baby came through one of these seven matric clans, and therefore is connected to that female divinity and all of the ancestresses and ancestors of that particular matric clan. When they say they announce the quote-unquote fate of the child at birth, what they're saying is we were assigned to one of these seven divinities and her related clan. Therefore, we were born into that clan. That deity is governing that matric clan, and the announcement of the fate is not the fate, it is the Nkra and Nkrabia, the divine function we are to execute in creation. And also relating to She and Shebia, the specific energy complex that we've been given to execute that divine function. Whether we're going to be a healer or healeress or a builder or engaged in military functions or agricultural activity and so forth, whatever our divine function in creation is, we're given a specific configuration of energy to support that divine function we have been given to execute in creation. So when they talk about the Seven Het Heru showing up at birth to announce the fate of the child, they're showing up to show which clan the child comes from. They have their own names, each one of the seven divinities. They have their own character. They have their own animal totems. They have their own sacred ritual processes and so forth, their own character, their own nuanced expressions of energy and so forth. They show up to show this child came from this clan, and his quote-unquote fate or her quote-unquote fate has to do with their specific function in creation. We are here to make sure you know who you are, what energy complex you have, how to utilize that energy complex to execute your function in creation. That's what they're dealing with the Seven Het Heru. That's what that text is talking about. In the Seven Het Heru, talking about what happens after death when the Seven Het Heru show up, but then in the tale of the doomed prince or the tale of the two brothers and so forth, when they show up at birth, the same thing is taking place. You're being birthed into the physical world, you live in the physical world for a while, then you transition, and then you're quote-unquote birthed into the spirit realm. And just like the Seven Het Heru show up at the birth physically and show you what your function is, when you make transition and go through these interrogations and so forth and pass, then you want to be birthed into the ancestral realm through one of the Seven Het Heru and be endowed with that increased power and potency through your Ba. So he says, let my Ba be among you, infused with that power so I can function in the world as I should. This is the kind of information that's undergirding not only this particular time period, that fertility aspect and being born into this fertile period. This is the upswing. It's the end of the dark period, the winter and so forth, and we're moving into the warm period, crossing that balancing point to the Fete Obere, the springtime. The plowing is taking place, the fusion between the great bull of heaven and the great cow of heaven, that copulation, that balance of complementary opposites. This energy has to do with equilibration, the equinox, equal days and equal nights. We take advantage of this equilibrating energy to equilibrate our relationships, our interaction with one another as Afurakani men, Afurakani women, so that can balance out and preserve and purify a marriage or lead to a marriage or union that will lead to marriage and so forth, that equilibrating piece. Always take advantage of the shifts in energy during the different times of the year, and this is this time. The fertile time physically for the land, fertile time physically for the people to come together and fuse together, bond relationships and so forth. It is a fertile time for utilizing that masculine energy and feminine energy for the conception and eventually the birthing of nation-building activities, nationism, purification of nationalism. all of this is taking place now. So we are in the midst of our 13-day cycle, or observance, the Apoo observance. In 2 days is the equinox, which you'll feel that intense equilibrating energy. We take advantage of that ritually. At the end of our 13-day observance is March 25th, which is this coming Awusidas Sunday. This is our AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference, which is we'll be having on Sunday here in Washington, D.C. We posted a great deal of information about that. It's a free event open to Afurakani people only, of course. When you go to the website, you must register. Registration is free. It is required, but it's free. We'll be giving away a free copy of our AKYISAN book to all who attend, as we always do. We will have vendors. I will be presenting on the Hoodoo tradition, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, the reclamation of Akan Ancestral Religion. Wakili Oyunola will be talking about Juju, reclamation of Yoruba Ancestral Religion in North America. Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau out of New Orleans will be presenting on Voodoo, reclamation of Ebe Ancestral Religion in North America, born of our blood circles that we have maintained for hundreds of years here in North America. We're not dependent on anyone outside of our blood circles. We don't have to travel back and forth to the Caribbean, the continent of Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, or different places to receive our ancestral religion. We have preserved it in our blood circles for hundreds of years right here in North America. This is what AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion is about. It's about going back to our originally inherited, transcarnationally inherited, and transmitted religious expression. So, on the phone line, if you have any questions or comments, hit the number 1. Okay, we're going to take a call on the phone line.
Hello, Odio.
On the phone line.
You can hear me?
What's up?
Yes.
Yes.
One thing you brought up in regards to beauty and ugliness, that this term in itself, most of the people that have been endowed and indoctrinated by this other race and this culture is they don't understand the perception of this is beauty and ugliness is a created construct. When we came across foreigners and invaders, but I remember at one time in history that there was ever definition or anything talking about the difference between the two. In regards to how people view looks or anything other aspect of beauty and ugliness. My question, that's my question or comment, most likely. What's the question on that?
Right. So the context of it is ugliness is always simply disorder is a manifestation, or what we call isfet in HKMF, a manifestation of ugliness is simply a manifestation of disorder. So if some disorder is manifest, then if disharmony manifests, and disharmony is, the perversion of harmony. So when we talk about Het Heru being Nefer, being the divinity beauty, beauty is, order manifests is harmony. That's what harmony is. You see order, you can't draw a picture of order, but if you see something that's harmonious, divinely harmonious, operating in harmony with, divine order, and it's manifesting divine order, then that harmony expresses itself as beauty, or what we call Nefer in ancient Kemet, or Fefe in Akan. In fact, spring is called Fefel Beri, which means the beautiful Fefel time. So, but if something operates outside of divine order, then it manifests as disharmonious, and then ugliness is a manifestation of that disorder, that disharmony. Specifically, when someone specifically operates out of harmony with order, they're supposed to be going in one direction, and then they go in the other direction deliberately. Now they're rejecting order and embracing disorder, and that manifests disorder, that manifests ugliness, and that anything that has to do with ugliness streams from that. Even sometimes if somebody did something in a previous lifetime, they were engaged in some criminality or, things like that, made their transition, they were still a negative spirit in the spirit realm, and then eventually they reincarnate, they're still carrying that open wound and so forth. never cultivated themselves fully and so forth, and they manifest that kind of disorder kind of character. It's not that they can't make changes and so forth, but if they have not, they're still engaged in that deliberate disorder character and so forth, that will manifest ugliness, and people will pick up on that. And they don't want to be around them. They're repulsive to people and everything else. So that disorder manifests repulsiveness, and people don't want to be around. So that's the origin where it comes from.
Where is this found in the text? Like, is there any one of your books that explains in more broad detail of this section?
On that point, we just touch on it with regard to, if you look in the Akradin Bosom section dealing with Het Heru, and when we did a series of some short blog articles on our Ojiratem page on WordPress with different aspects of Het Heru, and then we did a broadcast and we went into some detail about those. Well, that's where you'll find it.
Okay. All right. I think my question is answered. Thank you again, Madase.
Okay. Yeah, I say that. Appreciate the call. Okay. So, and as we were saying, like, we got another call. We're going to take another call. So on one hand, we have the conference coming up. So for those who are able to come to the conference, of course, it's in Washington, D.C. AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion. You'll see that page. We'll be giving away a free copy of the new AKYISAN book to all who attend. If you're not able to attend this particular conference, we have 3 conferences on a yearly basis. The next one, of course, is in June for the Ojiraman and Purified Nation Conference dealing with Amaniye Nationism, Purification of Nationalism, around the summer solstice, but this one is, of course, around the spring equinox coming up this weekend. We have a sale on our AKYISAN books, volume 1, 2, as well as 3, which is about to be released. This will assist us in some of the logistical pieces. We still have some expenses. We have to shift, some of you know, to a different venue, and the expense is greater, inclusive of insurance and some other things. So we're still working on that, covering those additional expenses. That's just the way we have to do it. So we do have a crowdfund effort for that. But we also have a sale. If you would like to purchase those 3 AKYISAN books, we have a sale. You go right on the website. You'll see that we have a special PayPal button. All 3 of those books for $30. That includes the shipping. So it's really like $23 plus the 7 is shipping. So it's $30 all inclusive for all 3 books. AKYISAN Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. And yet I say we had 3 people who took advantage of that sale over the weekend. We extended the sale. First, it was a weekend sale. We took advantage. We extended it to today. Some people didn't hear our special broadcast from last night. We did a special broadcast last night. It was dealing with Al-Sara and Al-Set and fertility. And it was important to do that broadcast because it was the first Awusidara Sunday of Apoo during this 13-day observance, so we want to do that. But some people didn't hear that broadcast yet, so we extended that sale to today. So if you would like to support our work, please go to the site. You can purchase those 3 books for $30. That special PayPal button is there. Or if you would like to just support the crowdfund effort for the AKYISAN conference, we appreciate that as well. Because, of course, all of our conferences and presentations and our books, all 29 books and now 30 are free downloads from the website. We have about 4,500 downloads of our books on a monthly basis. We've had over 55,000 of our books downloaded for free over the past 12 months. So we make sure the information is, even if people can't purchase the softcover versions of our books, they do have access to the ebook versions because the information is too important to hold for ransom. For the $8 to $11 that they cost. So when people do get a chance, if they do have some funds and would like to support, listen, black people in general just spent almost $250 million in 4 weeks on a movie, Black Panther. Imagine it's been nearly $200 million spent on Black Panther just by black people alone in America. Imagine if instead of giving $200 million to a movie written and produced by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, two crackers, and just that kind of nonsense. Imagine if that $200 million was given to 200 independent black schools. Each independent black school, each one of those 200 schools across the country, on Monday morning were given a check for $1 million. $200 million being given to 200 black schools. They would be able to expand their schools in a state-of-the-art fashion and capture thousands more of our children. Instead of giving $1 million check to 200 different black schools all around the country and empowering thousands and thousands and thousands of our children, the $200 million just went to a couple of crackers and some wealthy black people who, once they get the funds, they're going to spend it in the white community anyway, typically. So it'll be right back in the hands of the whites in Earl Spring once again. So we could have really empowered our people. We have billions of dollars. We're spending $20 billion per week, and 95+% of that is outside of the community to white businesses. That's why we starve the beast and feed the pride, of course. So we do have funds because we've proven it by giving them away to a project that does not benefit us at all. We could have easily spent that $200 million with 200 black schools or 200 black businesses receiving a check for $1 million. How many people could we hire, for $50,000 a year, immediately within a black business? If you have a small black business and you got $1 million check, you could expand your products and services and hire a number of black people. You could hire 20 black people at $50,000 a year immediately. And and then you have 200 black businesses doing that. You have thousands of people being hired at a high salary for the next year, and then their productivity over the next year, because they're working full time and have a good salary and so forth, that will increase the productivity exponentially, generating more opportunities for more revenue and so forth, and serving black people at a greater capacity. We could have spent that $200 million that way. So we have funds, but we need to plug the funds into something of substance. So if you support the work that we're doing, have benefited from our books, please support that AKYISAN, crowdfund or the sale, the 3 books for 30. Also, for those who are interested in the Ka, Kaitu, Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo retreat that's coming up on Memorial Day weekend in Treme, New Orleans, myself be presenting, as well as Galinda Laveau. We have a few spaces left. We anticipate or assess that possibly this week we'll be able to close registration, because there have been a number of people who said once they receive their tax refund this week, they wanted to register and so forth. So we have a few spaces. They, of course, are first come, first serve. We can't just hold spaces because some people may say they want a space and then, they end up not using it or whatever. So if you want to take one of the last spaces for the Ka, Kaitu, Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo retreat, which is the weekend, May 26th, May 27th, in Treme, New Orleans, with myself and Voodoo Queen Galinda Laveau, go to the Ka Kaitu page and reserve your space now. There's a 50% discount for couples. But we also have the payment plan option, the fee for the conference that includes the festival, retreat is $200. That includes the books that you're going to receive, the 3 different books you're going to receive that we'll be giving away for the different workshops and so forth. It also includes the vegan meal. It also includes the tour of New Orleans that Galinda does based on the voodoo tradition, voodoo perspective and so forth, which is unique. So you'll learn a great deal there, but then, the books as well as the food and so forth, all of that is included in the $200 price for the fee. So we can cover those different things and print out the books and give them out and everything. So, but we have a payment plan option for that. You can pay 50% up front, $100, and then a couple of weeks down the road, you can pay the other 50% so that you can reserve your space with the 50% down for that deposit. So all of that is on the website. If you would like to do that, take one of those last spaces for the Ka Kaitu retreat. Do that now. because they are first come, first serve, and, we may be closing. Hopefully we'll be able to close it out as far as registration this week, and then we'll be able to focus on getting everything else together. So we're going to take another call on the phone line. Michelle on the phone line, number 8162. You had a question or comment?
Michelle.
Michelle, what's up?
I just wanted to kind of veggie back off of the last caller. I kind of noticed the same thing when I was trying to do some work as far as recovery from the damage that's caused by so-called Achiwadifo beauty standards. And, when I look into different texts and things like that, like especially with the hieroglyphic dictionary, I couldn't find a word that translated to ugly from the hieroglyphics. And whenever I would find something in the text, it would always be when something was spoken about as far as complimentary, it was kind of about the adornments or about movements or things like that. It was never about like physical features. I couldn't find that anywhere. And so when you put out all of the information regarding Het Heru and what beauty is and those different articles and broadcasts, that really put a lot into perspective for me, and I appreciated all of that information. But my question is, it's like, how did it get from beauty being a manifestation of something natural, something that's showing order, to all the way down to just your physical body, just nothing else? It's just always about lips, thighs, and body parts, or even a set of facial features. How did it get reduced all the way from there to that? I know it's connected to Achiwadifo, but it's like, just how did they get there from that end of the spectrum?
Well, simply because the whites and their offspring, when they invaded our civilizations, of course, they weren't accustomed. I mean, just imagine them first invading southern Europe, because we were in southern Europe. We had migrated from northern Afuraitkaitnit to southern Europe. We're there, the whites and their offspring, after the end of last ice age. Imagine them invading for the first time. They've been separated for, some millennia. Now they're bleached out and, disordered crackers and everything. And then they come in contact with, black skin, brown skin, people radiating order. They're not accustomed to that, right? So they seek to control and possess, and they want to pounce on and possess and grab. And then from that possession, if they're trying to, through warfare and so forth, and we typically were crushing them for thousands of years. It's only the past couple of hundred years they got the upper hand. But once they possess somebody and they decide this is the one who's, receiving all the accolades and everything else, so this is what beauty is, and then they start trying to fit themselves into that, but then they know they don't have those qualities, so they're going to try to bludgeon our people into believing that their features are beautiful, and if you don't agree with it, you're going to get killed or stomped out or whatever, enslaved or whatever it is. When the Greeks invaded, Persians, Greeks, and so forth, they're trying to force themselves, for example, sculptures of themselves, these ugly, white, perverse females. They're placing sculptures of themselves in the temples, removing the sculptures of Set, calling this ugly criminal cracker Isis, and saying this is the goddess of beauty, or motherhood, and then they place, Aphrodite, Hathor, quote unquote, ugly, cracker, up on a pedestal, and saying this is now Hathor, this is now the goddess of beauty, and trying to bludgeon that into our people, beat it into our people, kill our people if we don't accept these fake deities and make us worship them. So at some point, thousands of years later, some of our people fell into that. So it had to do with them first trying to possess our people, control our people, emulate our people. They can't emulate our people, so then they're going to put themselves forward and bludgeon us and force our people through threat of violence to accept, okay, we're going to start calling this beautiful. Even if you don't think it is, we're just going to make you say it so often that you just begin to accept it. You're going to make people say so often that black skin is ugly that they just start accepting it. They don't, a little child doesn't grow up believing that. They have to be told that. They have to be made to believe that brown skin is ugly. have to be made to believe that thin white lips and bleached out skin and, dead hair and pointy noses and all, they have to be made to believe that that nonsense is beautiful, because it's not. It's repulsive just even before you speak. The whites in our spring are repulsive spiritually and physically, electromagnetically and everything else. So you have to be forced to believe, tricked into believing that you need to accept that as beauty and your own natural characteristics as inferior. But if you look at, for example, reading the text from the hymn of the Seven Het Heru, and you were talking about, you really only saw things about movement and so forth with regard to beauty. And that's right, in essence, it's talking about harmony. Now, harmony is that continuous flow of complementary opposites and fusion and so forth, which is what Het Heru governs. If things are moving harmoniously, it radiates beauty. If they get disjointed and jacked up, then there's, some discordance, and that discordance is what we call disorder. But even if you say, if you look at that, the text we read from the hymn of the Seven Het Heru, for example, they talk about Lady of Jubilation, Lady of Music, Mistress of Harp Playing, Lady of Dancing. This is all movement, action, harmonious movement. Mistress of Tying on Garlands. They talk about they glorify Her Majesty. There was one particular line. Hold on one second. There was one particular line I wanted to pull out. One line says, we rejoice when we see you day by day. Our hearts are jubilant when we see your majesty. You are the Lady of Garlands, the Mistress of Dance, the Lady of unending ecstasy, inebriation, so to speak. We rejoice before your face. When they're talking about rejoicing before your face, they also talk about Het Heru being the child of Ra and Ra'et, manifest through the Aten, and she's called Atenit in some of the texts, meaning the female sun, meaning she's radiant or she's beaming. And the only way you can be radiant or beaming is if you're living in harmony with divine order, and your Ba, that divine living fire energy, is radiant and beaming and shining. And you're so radiant and beaming and shining that you have a great aura, and you pull people into your orbit because you have substance. Just like the sun has substance, it's big enough and powerful enough to draw the planets into its orbit. The planets can't draw the sun into their orbit. So if you're substantive and you're radiant and you're powerful and you're beaming, you draw people into you because you're harmonious. If you're not, then you're going to be repulsive. At best, you're just not going to be strong enough. You won't draw any people. It's just, people are indifferent. At worst, you'll be repulsive because you're deliberately engaged in disorder. But the whole thing about the white standard of beauty, that's just a mind hack. That's nonsense. It's something that's, ingrained within our people. But if we're left to our natural state, if you left a child to his or her natural state, just coming in contact with the white star spring, they are repulsed even before getting close enough to, clearly see them. Their spirits are repulsive. The deceased relatives of the white star spring around them are repulsive. Their features are repulsive. Their morphology is corrupt. Their body structure, everything is discordant. There's nothing harmonious about them at all. So it always goes back to, like you're saying, that whole notion of movement and harmonious, interfacing. That's the manifestation of Nefer, or beauty. And even in the particular blog that we did on Het Heru, and we talked about Nefer and the energy and the F, that vital energy, and the Ra, that radiant. So you have a primordial energy, which is the vital energy of the breath, which is the F sound, the sound, and then the Ra sound, the radiant energy. Those together manifest beauty. F and Ert. Nefer is, primordial, vital, radiant energy. Definition of Nefer, or beauty. But it's manifest. So when we talk about, that's not a description, that's a title of Het Heru. As she functions, she generates that collection of sound vibrations, and you can feel it. And it's radiant, and it's powerful, and it's substantive. So we call that beauty, but that's a manifestation of what's actually happening. So that would be my answer to that.
I say. But I say.
And for those who don't know that, thought she was trying to hide. She's the one. Business. Komet Crown. She was the one who we did an interview with last week. So, made our say for that. Okay. Heads up. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Heads out.
Okay. So. All right, so we're going to end the broadcast here, 10:45. But once again, for a couple of things, the AKYISAN conference is this Sunday. We do need some assistance from those who have been supporting the work. If you have only for those, and we always ask this question, only if you received a tangible benefit from studying the work. Some people may see the work and may not get too, in depth with it, but people have studied it and it's made an impact on you. Some of the free downloads and so forth, some of the free books, sometimes people say, hey, I've downloaded all 29 of your books. They've really impacted my life. So like we were saying yesterday, we 10-year anniversary of our Obervance Afurakani manhood book this year. Over the past year alone, we've had 17,000 downloads of that book. So it's impacted Afurakani young men and adults all around the country, different parts of the world, transforming their view, transforming the way they interface with one another, with their family, with their spouse, children, community, moving towards nation building, entrepreneurship, purifying themselves, rejecting drug use and negativity and so forth, and transforming their lives. And they've been able to download, these are the free downloads, the 17,000 free downloads. Of course, some people purchase the softcover version of the book for $9, but most people get that free download. But there have been tangible benefits. So if you've had a tangible benefit for any of the work we've done or any one of these 326 broadcasts we've done, take the time now to support our effort. This is our third annual AKYISAN conference. We do need that support because of the increased costs of this, of the new venue. That's just the way things have gone down this year when we switched over. But we're still, of course, keeping the conference free. And we'll have our vendors. You can shop with the vendors, hear the presentations and so forth, but we do need to get certain things done, and we have a couple of deadlines coming up tomorrow, Tuesday, Benada, as well as our Wukuda Wednesday, so we want to get as much support as we possibly can. So, and yet I'll say for the 3 people who ordered the 3 books for the sale, because that helped greatly. So whether you're assisting with the AKYISAN conference for purchasing the books or just purchasing books in general, that helps as well, or contributing to the crowd fund, that will help. But also, once again, for those who are actually interested in the Ka and Kaitu Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo event, we are looking at closing the registration this week once we reach that number of 25. So we have a few spaces left. Go to the Ka and Kaitu page if you're interested in that retreat, because those spaces should be taken by this week. That's what we anticipate. That's what we assess. So, again, yet I'll say we thank you for tuning into this broadcast, and Yebesha Bio, we will meet again. That's up.